how you executed it, what were some of the challenges, and then what you learned from it, so to speak. I will start from the other at the top. Or should we start from the one that is not for the news?
No, let's start with Abba.
All right, Abba.
I don't mind going first. Thank you everyone for having us, and Ibi, thank you for the introduction. I think out of the films I made, the one I'm most passionate and proud about is The Lost of Orochi. And it has a very dear place in my heart because it's something that I was inspired by since I was a child, masquerades. And as we were speaking in the green room about how diverse Jos is, I grew up around a lot of Igbo people, so it's a culture I'm familiar with. So I was drawn to do something around the Igbo masquerade. And yeah, so because I was close to the subject matter, I had full confidence in what I was doing. And I also was inspired by a lot of African mysticism as well, you know, religion, whatnot. And simultaneously, I was also discovering the work of a lot of photographers who are taking pictures of masquerades across the continent. Somebody like Jean-Claude Moschetti. And these images, they were striking. It's as if you could see the spirit of the masquerade in the photos. And I also saw there was this French photographer who was doing pictures of ancient pagan European ceremonial gowns. His name is Charles Frieda. And those costumes, they looked exactly quite similar to the African masquerades. So I was now piecing the puzzle. I'm also a fan of Carl Jung and the theory of the collective unconscious, which is the idea that spirituality, God, it all kind of comes from one divine source in the collective unconscious. So I was like, it's everywhere, it's universal. So just those themes got me excited, and I decided to do this project about a man that is transformed into the masquerade. And as you know, Nigeria, there's no, our industry, everything is private. From the biggest project to the smallest, it's all private funding. It's not like places like France or across Europe where there are public funds. Although, interesting, Jonathan's government, there was Project Act Nollywood. And some of us,
did you get Project Act?
I got 7 from Jonathan.
It's the same with the Lost Country.
And I didn't vote for it. No, I didn't have voters cards. But yeah, the Project Act Nollywood grant was something that was quite amazing. That because I didn't know any politician, I didn't know anybody in government. I just applied online, submitted everything, and one day we got a call to be screened. Yes. And funny enough, the day I went for the screening, I just hired my assistant, Donna Tusukwazi, who is like he's played so many characters in my films. He played Don E in Green, White, Green. He played Amos in Juju Stories. I just hired him as my assistant, and we went to Sulere for the screening, walking, and it's Hyginus Ukwazi, his uncle, who is doing the screening. And when we're walking, he's like, Don, what did they do for you? We're here to look for money. How much we asked, what was our budget? He said, okay, no problem. And he called me later in the evening, and he was like, yeah, we're going to give you guys some money. And then we ended up in the Ministry of Finance in Abuja, signed the document, and like a month later, I was just sleeping, woke up, I just saw credit alert, and I just went back to sleep. So I think it's very important that we have institutions that can support filmmakers, because like the film, I don't think I could have gotten that film made if I didn't get that boost, you know. And I think the government didn't want anything in return. It was free money, and there was money for capacity building. And
that was about $50,000 right then.
Yes. It was good money.
It's pretty good.
So with my sister, who is also my EP, she now completed the money for post-production, and doing that we are an art house, I hate that word by the way, but indie auteur type filmmaker. We knew the international market would be a place that would fit us. We went to Film House, and funny enough, Film House, they passed on Green White Green, but they said that recommended for international film festivals and Netflix. So yeah, that's how kind of my career started as I've been doing stuff, short films, corporate stuff, but from a feature-length point of view, was that kick-started the project, and we ended up at TIFF, and from TIFF we just kept on doing different international film festivals, BFI, whatnot. And the same thing happened with Lost Okorochi. This time, no good luck Jonathan money, so my sister put up all the money, but because what we had done with the previous film worked, and we were able to lock down distribution deal with through AAA, an aggregator in South Africa. We were able to get to Netflix. So
speak a bit about that. AAA out of South Africa is one of the
yes,
collators for Netflix, aggregators for Netflix.
Yes.
Film One is one of them.
Yes.
Do you think the price that comes through AAA South Africa is a bit higher than what you would get?
I mean, it's standard, right? 15% seems to be like...
No, not what their distribution fee. What Netflix will pay you if AAA is... Just honest, do you think...
No. So if we're being direct, Green White Green was made with about a budget of 30K US dollars.
Wow,
and
impressive.
then we licensed it for 80 with Netflix for 2 years.
Okay.
And the first year is exclusive. So there's room to sell the film to other places.
Okay.
So after we did Netflix, we did Canal Plus, we did Airlines, and now it's even on Prime Video as well. So a film that was made in 2016 has had like a good shelf life that is still bringing revenue. So just for perspective, there's always this misconception that if you don't do good in the box office in Nigeria, I live off my films and nothing else. Well, I sell art as well, and I sell land and other stuff. But like primarily, I live off my films. I get good income from my films, from screening fees, and then I've traveled the world. I've gone to Russia twice. I can't count how many times I've been to France, Germany, North Africa, all over the place. So if there's a market for everybody. That's the beautiful place we're in right now in our industry. You have the likes of, we are seated here, we represent the spectrum of the industry right now. As far left as myself, CJ Obasi, Mike Omonua, and as far right as Kayode, to Jade, to Kemi Adetiba, to center, Kenneth Young. So nobody should be discouraged. There's room for everybody to thrive in this industry.
Excellent. I think the takeaway there clearly is his last point, which is, I know he hits the word art house, auteur, whatever it is. If you're one of those kinds of filmmakers, the belief that you need to change or sort of adapt to more commercial sort of premises, you're seeing sort of real testimony about how you can actually make a commercial livelihood from even sort of indie, even though we're all indie in a sense. Kenneth,
Sorry, and Lost Okorochi is coming back to streaming in February. Apple TV, look out for it.
Really? That's the first Nigerian one on Apple TV that I've heard of. Like, locally shot in Nigeria that I've heard of that's going on Apple TV.
Yeah, but it's TVOD, it's not SVOD, so yeah.
Oh, okay. Who cares? And is that just direct you uploading to Apple, or do you have an agent that...
I have an agent. So Deck Analog, the same people who are distributing Mami Watai in North America, they're also my distributor.
They're also a distributor.
Well. Yeah.
Excellent. And this came about from festival runs?
Yeah.
Was how you met Deck Analog?
Yes.
Okay.
So Deck, the founder of Deck Analog, used to work at Metrograph, a popular art house cinema in New York and LA. And when Lost Okorochi came out and it was doing its festival run, that's the beautiful thing. Again, once you get into one international film festival, you kind of enter the ecosystem. You stop submitting. They just keep coming to you. You just be refreshing your emails. And not just festivals, sales agents, distributors, collaborators.
Excellent.
Just keep making the work, That's the trick.
Excellent. All right. Kenneth.
Hi everyone. For me, I think that I have to just go back a bit. I have a story to tell in terms of the film that I have now, but I have to just go back a bit for my first film, and that was it was made with a grant. That was Confusion Hour, right? And so when I made that film with the grant and it taught and all of that, the problem that I discovered was because I had projects that I developed, and so it was at I had projects at Waga Film Lab, which is an elite lab in Africa for films, and then I was at the Yave Producers Workshop. This was with a film that I was going to do called El Dorado Road. It's set on the road to hell, basically, right? But what happened was I discovered that, in all honesty, we don't really have public funding in Nigeria. And so whenever you travel abroad, because my first film gave me a lot of all of that international traction and festivals, just like he mentioned, in terms of they get in touch with you, they know your works and all of that. But the main problem is when you don't have public funding in Nigeria, right? It is very difficult for you to be able to just walk out and work with an international co-producer, right? So when you do, because I remember I was at the Yave Producers Workshop, which is a one-year training program for people who want to get into elite producing in Europe. The problem is that I had a lot of conversations about my film, right? But if they're going to talk about the money they're going to give, right, how much money can you get back from Nigeria? And it's nothing. And if they consider you art house in Nigeria, you're almost like a pariah, people don't want to talk to you. So what I did was that I had to try to get into mainstream, because I always feel that if you stay on the outside and you always criticize what's going on the inside, there's no way you can actually affect the change just by just critiquing it from the outside, right? So that's actually how I got in, and I worked on some project. But that's what leads me to my project now that I've made. After a couple of years, I think at some point you just get burnt out. When you make all these big studio productions, you just get burnt out. And I got bored. So I picked a script that we wrote in 2010 called This Is Lagos. It's actually premiering on Thursday here at the festival.
That was a flex, by the way. He got bored of big studio productions. Blood Sister, all that. I just got bored of, it's too much for me.
Sometimes you really, because everywhere around the world, right? When you get money from studios to make a film, even if you have 90% control, which I always want to have control in my films, and I always push to get control, even from writing, right? There's this whole thing where sometimes when the decision is not solely yours, it can be really boring. You just want to go to do something that you have total control, 100%, that people say, oh yeah, that is this person. So when I came back to do, I picked up the script that we wrote in 2010, This Is Lagos, and then I wanted to do it. But the film is set in Lagos, because back in the day, when you leave, because I grew up in Jos, and the first time when you come to Lagos, you come by road, you land at Bega, on all the buses, and you're like, shit, what is this whole noise I'm hearing? Because it's almost like you're just hearing, ooh, and you're just wondering what is going on, right? Because you can't hear any single thing, just a noise. And I think then I was on my way to, because I was going for a training workshop in Ouagadougou from film school. That was the first time I got here. So we're going through Benin Republic by road, right? Because of course film school will never fly you, of course. So I got into Lagos, and it was so it's a chaos. And when you're coming to Lagos, there's always stuff that they always tell you. You need to be careful. Lagos is this, Lagos is that. And even if I complain to Coyote and I say, oh yeah, someone actually just stole money from me, they say, no, Lagos you did. Is that not what they say? Yeah, just relax. You have so it feels like there's always a first baptism when you get into town here. So with that, so we have this story that, I read a short story from a guy called Crispin. We worked together at the BBC then. And so he wrote this short story that was published, and I really liked it. It's called This Is Lagos, and the characters. So we decided to develop it. But then we didn't have money to do it at the time, right? So we kept it aside, and now when I picked it up and I sent it to my friend James Samuta, who actually does all kinds of logistics in this town. If you need anything done, you have to just look for James Samuta. And when he read it, he told him that the logistics for this film is bigger than logistics for Blood Sisters. So when I heard that, now, and the whole story is set around Lagos mainland, and I have a big bottling plant and all of that. So growing up in Jos, if you know Jos very well, there's actually an area for Igbos. That area is just like strictly, you will feel that you are around Surulere, basically, if you are in Apata, right? If you move to like Nasarawa, that's actually where the Yoruba people are, right? Like, I mean, totally in Jos, yes. Then when you move to, is it Angon Rogo, right? That's totally Hausa community. You feel you are in Kano. Because it was like that, it started like that from the time of mining, tin mining. So a lot of people, so Jos is like small Lagos, basically. It's small, it's Lagos like small scale because you have everything. So I know everything about Nigeria even before ever coming to Lagos. That's why we're always surprised when, you know, like when you look at Abba and say, oh yeah, oh this Hausa boy, we know Yoruba, we know Bendel, we know Igbo. Do you understand? We know all of, we know like, I mean, people, but there's certain classification, and that's what what you get when, you get to know stuff when you grow up in a very cosmopolitan, small like community where you know people. And so I decided just like take the whole production like I mean to Jos. I told the actors that okay, we can actually pull this stuff off. And they're like, no. Because I told them, oh, where am I even going to get a big bottling plant in Lagos? Like a real big bottling plant. But then, so with that, you know, that is actually what you will do to be able to create as an independent filmmaker. Because if you say you're going to shoot, like, I mean, it's the same thing in America, right? Like, you have people in, if you want to shoot New York City, you might go to Toronto to go and shoot because it's like cheaper for you and all of that stuff, right? It basically, the work now has to do with like production design, yeah, the performance and sound design, right? And in some cases, if you want to take a leap from maybe a bit of Martin Scorsese with Class of the Flower Moon, you can just be a bit of VFX, just like add to it, just like give it that whole, yeah. So that's what we did. And then I had to look for a partner, a local partner, because now being in the industry, getting into mainstream has opened me up to people who have funding in the industry. So like I came with like part of the money. I even talked with Sterling Bank as well to raise some money for me.
Sorry, before you get to the money, let me ask a very ignorant question.
Okay.
This is quite ignorant.
Yeah.
A lot of us in the South are quite, you know, inundated with all, your grandma will send you WhatsApp messages about they're killing everybody in Jos.
Yeah.
You know, which is quite stupid. What is so educate people, what is shooting and production in Jos like? Because it's cinematically gorgeous, right?
Yeah.
Is it a whole logistical thing around security or no?
So, can I take this?
Yeah, take it, yeah.
Jos is legit kind of like the Middle East, where you have places that, unfortunately, using that maybe right now is a bit too sensitive. But there's like a security post in almost every local government area entering and whatnot. So there are places that are highly secure and there hasn't been any issue. Like, for instance, the capital itself, Jos, has been safe ever since the last crisis that was 10 years ago. I think actually about 14 years ago, it has been relatively safe. No big issue. But you have all these isolated incidents happening in different local government areas that could be between maybe 10 to 20 people who get massacred by herdsmen or bandits and whatnot. But I live in Jos. I alternate between Jos, Lagos. If I'm not working in Lagos, I just go back home immediately. And there's no problem whatsoever, you know.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah, because like really, in the city itself, it's very, very peaceful, right? And I remember when I was going to fly in, even my actors like Kate Henshaw, she was wondering if we're going to get maybe like an helix of security to pick her from the airport. And I was like, what are you talking about, right? So no, it is, the stories that you hear usually happens like around the communities way out of town. And Jos is not like a very, Plateau State is not small. What is happening in Plateau State gets equated to like what is going on in Jos, but it's very, very different because so that's what it is. Yeah,
so
and
back to Sterling Bank. I want to hear about that.
Yeah, well, like I mean, with Sterling Bank, yeah. So they came in. They actually supported me with some money, and then I got in touch with Charles Opalake, who came into as executive producer with Jide Makinde for technical magic, and then I talked with Dan McCain to get equipment and all of that because like it's an expensive film, just like I mean my friend said, but how do you actually make it? So those were the routes that I actually followed to make that film.
Speak a bit. The Charles and Jide, and some of that was in kind, some of that obviously was in cash. That's we used to that process. Sterling, was that debt? Or was
Yeah.
that it? So was
No,
that
it
debt?
is. It is. Yes.
Okay, you don't
yeah.
have to give us the
detail.
how much you got, but is that commercial retail 26% debt that you're doing, and which means you have to shoot very fast and turn it around and pay that back? Or did they have a different instrument that they created for you to be able to make the film at a lower interest rate?
No, so when we started, right, there was actually a different instrument, right? It was supposed to be, they are just going to be, so the film is just going to serve almost as a form of like, collateral as well, which is
Nice.
like fantastic because that's how Sterling Bank wanted to come into the industry. Unfortunately for me, they developed like in cold feet, so now I had to like take it as loan, but now they're doing the same, they have started doing the same thing. I think like they're doing that partnership with Film One as well. So yeah, they're opening up, yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
excellent,
Mhm.
excellent. And just before we let him go, so it hasn't finished yet. Are you done shooting?
Yes, I'm done shooting. The film is now in competition at this festival. It's shown on Thursday.
That's right.
Yes, this is
Okay.
Lagos, yes.
So everybody go watch This Is Lagos, and then we need to promote it so that you can pay Sterling back.
Yes,
Yeah, man.
exactly.
Right?
Thank you.
Right? All right, great. Kairi, your story. You have too many blockbusters. Kairi. Your fans are too many. Pick.
I'll say for me, it's for me it's just one for the love of making films. And when I made my first feature film, which is Ogabolaji, I kind of came into my own to understand that I do have a voice. Like I was connected to speaking through films. If you know me, I'm a very quiet, shy person, but I can scream and shout in my films. So once I had done it, just the excitement that I had done something I always wanted to do, and I just kept going. So I just kept going, and in doing that, I guess I was learning, understanding the industry, and also just seeing, understanding how the industry works and how the industry talks. There are certain types of film, understanding that there are art house films, there are commercial films. Also understanding the type of films that will go international. So what I did was I also wanted to make more films, and the only thing I know how to do, I would say that I know how to use to make money is filmmaking. So I found out that I could be a director for hire. And that was also an opportunity for me to try out different genres and still, as you're making films, be good at filmmaking and just find your voice. And in doing that, after a while, we did Can't Believe the whole 30 yards, This Lady Called Life, went to Fast Food.
I'm not going to let you flex your muscle with your hand, DB. No.
No,
So we have two films.
So we had done some films, and we now figured out that we can. That's on the spot. I just figured out. It looks like we can create a studio, which is Film Tribe, and in that, as we're making films, we're also learning that there are structures we have to put in place to make very good films. I guess after a while of shooting films, I found confidence, and my own story is Obaram. I found confidence after shooting a couple of films, and I said to myself, I wanted to make a music film. Every room I walk in, and I was making a music film, everybody would just go quiet because it was like it's not going to work. But I found confidence that I had done some films, I had listened to the audience, also listened to my peers, and I had learned a couple of things, and I would say that I had understood what the Nigerian audience would want. So it's more of, I'm not just thinking about Nigerian audience, it was more of how can I be myself and make the type of films that I want to make and still make it commercial. So we tried with I partnered, because one person cannot make films, guys. So you always have to find your own circle. I had met somebody, Dario Lighton. I met him in the festival of my first screening on Ogabolaji. And one thing we both liked about each other is we liked weird ideas that we wanted to try to make commercial. So in 2022, it was like, how can we help each other make the films we want to make? So we tried out the horror and the music film, which is Ileowo and Obaram. And in doing that, I had to learn how to collaborate. So you have to also know your partner's strengths, and you have to know when to step up and when to step back. In doing that, so we created a slate of 2 films that we were going to go through the cinema channel. And one thing, if you look at stats, the films that really do well are cinema. Like every year when you look at the charts, you know it's Film One films that when they go to cinema, they do well. So it just made sense for us to partner with them. We started out independent, but I'm not patient like these guys. I want to make the money ASAP. So partnered with Film One, and we released those films in cinemas, and in 12 months they were already on streamers. For us, that was
But
like...
how did you raise for the films? Did Film One do the producing as well, or did you raise independently?
Yes, raised independently. We raised independently by self-funding and seeking from investors. One person that really was really helpful for us was Piggy Odon Ayowini. She's an investor in the slate for 2022. So we also went to Tech Money. We product placements. We had Kuda in the films, Kuda Bank, and a lot of self-funding. So if you know me, I'm an editor, the director of here, a producer there. Yes, so there's a lot of self-funding, and I think that's also an easy way to navigate yourself in this space. You might not, everybody's going to be lucky to have that one project that will give them a boom. Also, in working with other people, you are building a community for yourself. So for me, that's my route. Just working with everybody, getting to know these actors, getting to know producers, cinematographers, and so it's building a community of people. And yeah, so that was it.
Can you give me a sense of, and for This Is Lagos as well, could you give me a sense of what those budget ranges are? You don't have to say what you're getting back from the streamers, but what was the budget range for Ileo and Obaram? Say the name again.
Obaram. I think for us it was, how can we make 2 films with 150M?
Okay, great. So true budget would be some circa 250 something.
Yeah, because
but
when you're
now,
saying something like that, you're not paying yourself as producer, director, writer, editor. Right. So that's one thing as filmmakers, we don't value that. But when you're about to do the sale, when you're asked about the budget, one thing distributors we always do is they just want to know your budget, and maybe they'll give you 1x or bargain for 2x. So it's very important that you know your worth on the budget. So yes, I would say. So
Kaede is telling you to cook the books before you talk to the streamers to make sure that you put all the numbers in. Make sure everybody that bought jollof rice, add it into your budget before you explain what it is to distributors.
I'm saying know your worth for the project. But yes, so for us, yeah, that's it. And one thing for me personally in my career is there are certain films that are my films. Like if you follow my work, you know, yeah, this is Kaede's film. So it's more of, I like playing the commercial game. I like making films for people in cinema. But there are certain type of projects that I'll just take the risk and do them. Case in point, Obaram, a music film. Yeah, so it's like preparing yourself for the one that you've always talked about. So mainly I'm self-funded from the projects that we release in cinema.
Okay. We're going to go into some of the stuff that you touched on with the freelance stuff. I'll just give my own anecdotal stuff. Some of you have heard, we're fortunate to have my first film that I'm quite happy with, Breath of Life, is playing at the closing film for Afrif. And really, the interesting part about that story is, I don't know if anybody has heard of a TV show called Before 30, but we made a TV show, many years ago. We did a pilot for it, and then we self-funded that and got some sponsorship and so on, and were able to make a TV show. And back then, it was just before the cinema boom sort of happened. And the way that you used to sell content back then was splintered to everybody that will listen to you, right? You go to DeFi, you go to O2S, you go to everything, and you sort of, sell your content all over, right? And we sold to African Channel, and there happened to be a lady at Africa Channel. We're still very good friends today. She's left. She's now with Hulu. And she was obsessed with Before 30. She just loved Before 30. And she then was friends with Ayana Ludian, who works at Amazon for Head of Acquisitions International, and made her watch it without any of my knowledge long before Amazon was ever coming here. So Ayana reached out and said, I like this. What else do you have? And that's how we got commissioned for Breath of Life. And, so a lot of this stuff is serendipitous, but the stuff you make a while ago is, and we had to fight. The budget for Breath of Life was 500,000, but you have to sort of fight. And he spoke to some of that where commission naira, and if you can make film for 500,000 naira, come and see me. I will fund
I'll
you.
give you a job.
Yeah, I don't even care what you're shooting. I'll fund you immediately. If anybody else still knows how to make 500,000 naira film, you have a film. You have a deal. Let's go. But ultimately, the beauty is some of the stuff he spoke about, where I'm a relatively commercial director, or I try to be. I don't think I'm an artist, and I collaborate hugely. That's the one thing film has taught me, is I'm an immense collaborator. I feel like the person who knows about sound is supposed to know more about sound than I do. So why am I challenging the person about sound? So my real work in filmmaking for me is vetting the people. If I can afford you, you're not on my set. That's my forte. The minute I can actually afford your kidney, I don't hire you. I need people who are better than what I can pay for. And then once I bring you in, that's it. Like, I trust infinitely, right? So to that effect, I learned to sort of give a lot of grace to my team, but I'm also that way with execs and studios, and they typically make things better. We have this belief that they don't. And the reason I'm bringing this up is not a masterclass, but I'll say this very last thing is, it's easy to get very, very, especially with a panel like this, right? I realize now that Kaede 2 should stay far away from me. He's on that side of the train, right? Even though they do some commercial work. You can speak to artists and auteurs and really get the sense that is what is in your own soul that you should make, and don't listen to anybody and that, and you know, Kenneth wear his glasses and tell you he's tired of studio film. Most of you that are going to make a living in this space, you need to deal with execs. You need to take notes, you need to listen, you need to, some of them are annoying, but that's the reality of the game they play. They have the money, and whoever has the money calls the shots. It's just a fact, right?
Yeah.
If you want, you can abba it up and tell you, F you, I've got my own money. And then when you make it, you show them, and they'll still come.
Yeah.
So if you trust yourself, for sure. But if you've decided to work with a studio, there's no point going into that relationship and then starting to fight the friction within that relationship.
Yeah, but
okay?
I also think it's about respect, you know. You're putting up the money. Obviously, the filmmaker should respect that somebody has taken hard-earned cash to finance this project. But the financier also has to respect you, the filmmaker, who
100%.
is, you're trusting them to make this project, and you want the best out of it. And if you know creatives, it's not just filmmakers. If a creative is not happy, your work will suffer. So you need to secure your investment by making that person happy and respecting the person.
Okay, and this dialogue is going to, that's the beauty in this panel. I'm not a studio exec, although I've become one, because we have a slate of films that I'm commissioning people.
Yeah.
But so I do stand on that side of the thing. I definitely agree with you. I do think that the first biggest form of respect is that I've come and said, I am putting my money towards your dream and your vision. That's an immense amount of respect. There's a million people I could give that to. I chose you. That in its own right is a full amount of respect. The second thing is that we're filmmakers, we're very passionate, right? So if you get 96 things and they say no to 4 things, it's those 4. You don't respect me?
Yeah. No,
You
well,
don't respect my vision?
absolutely.
Right? And
no.
I didn't know this till I was on that side of the aisle.
I
I'm now saying to
agree
people,
as well. You know, there's the ego aspect of it. Sometimes you have to remove your ego, and then you also have to see things from a objective point of view. Because even as an artist, with all your crazy, insane ideas, you might also be wrong. So
I also think, like, as a filmmaker, like, know who you're taking money from. It's like, it's not everybody you want to work with. Like,
it's all part of the collaboration as well.
If you look
Even
at
the financing.
if you look at a financier's slate, the type of films they finance, and it's not the type of film you're going to make, there's going to be a clash. So I think it's like you're looking for financiers that have, I'll say, similar interests for what the project, for what you're looking for in the project.
Okay, so we'll come back to Abba in a second, because I don't think this question relates to him. I want to talk to 2 of you who sort of earn a bit of a living off freelance filmmaking. Is that fair to say?
Yeah.
How do you...
And they freelance too.
Are you
You're excluding me. And they shoot adverts. And
Very
they shoot
true.
documentary. Al Jazeera.
So you now have to flex on us. Okay, fair enough.
Facts. Just
No,
facts.
fair enough. I meant freelance Nollywood
No, I know. Of course, I know.
narrative. Tell us how a filmmaker out there should learn how to price themselves in the structures that. How do you go about doing that? Do you base it off a budget? Do you base it off the sort of film you want to do? Do you base it off a passion? How do you say my fees 3 million, my fee is 5 million, knowing that it takes you what, roughly minimum 6 months of your life, ideally maybe even 9 months thereabout, right? Especially for the bigger projects. How do you go about framing what your worth is? And then what are some of the things in freelance that you've sort of pitfalls that you've learned to sort of give us some advice around freelance directing in Nollywood?
Should you want to go?
Yeah. Okay. So for me, yeah, I would say that the way I price myself started from how I started making films. I started being in the industry, working with the BBC, because I was directing with Inde when I was barely out of film school. Yeah, so at the time, like, the money that they will pay you is not going to be the industry standard amount, right? And you know how it is with BBC. They take care of you like a superstar and all of that. Yeah, so you're well taken care of. Now, and that is actually what helped me to actually go through the route of like film festivals. But then what happens with film festivals that it does for you is that when NGOs put out ads for stuff that they want to look at your CV. And if you tell them my film won this at this festival and this festival, that is like cool stuff. So that is actually how I was making money, because I lived in Jos. Like, I just moved to Lagos 2 years ago, right? Because I lived in Jos, right? And that's how you make money with all of these NGOs. So lots of money. So when it got to mainstream, I remember the first call that I had from a big studio. And then when I told them, oh, I was going to be paid 3 million naira, right? They thought it was ridiculous, right? Like, but the thing is that when you come from the background of that, like, my background, you understand how people put value to art, basically. So yeah, I didn't do that project. And for me, I always walk away from projects. Like, I think in terms of like as in features that I've done only one. That was a lottery, right? For hire. And that was because that idea was aligned with the idea of the film I was developing, El Dorado Road, right? And so when they came, they had the money, Ebony Life had the money, and so when they came, I decided to go and do it. But for that one, I actually took a pay cut because I was really trying to make a statement. Because at the time they see you as an outsider. Like, that's how the industry looks at you. So I wanted a story that aligns with the sort of like, heart-hitting stories that I want to tell, and then like funded by a studio. And for me, like, as a filmmaker, that is glorious. So I came in and I worked on that. And so the impact of that really has proven to them that, okay, there's actually there's a thing that you have to look at when you're hiring filmmakers, even for like studio projects and all of that. And so I just put a premium to myself. So I really charge I try to charge as much. International rates. That's actually what I charge. Yeah. So I remember recently someone approached me. I think it was a big studio. And when they actually learned about it, I heard they were actually having a conversation. Oh yeah, so this person charges like this. Because the thing is that as a filmmaker, you're talking about 6 months. It's not 6 months. You're going to do pre-production, and you're talking about writing. It takes some time to get the script in shape. Then you're going to do it. Then other people have moved on to working on other sets, and you're still doing that. You're doing post-production and all of that stuff, right? Now you have to put premium to this stuff. So I don't do a lot of projects, but like anyone that you see my name on it, I have to be really well paid to do it.
So for me, like I got to do film being an do-it-yourself filmmaker. So I could guess. There was nowhere and there was no guide to tell you how much like a director should charge, but I could guess. So I found a range for myself, but after I had made my first film was I produced it, executive produced it myself. I had figured out what the metric was and how much films were earning. So what I would do was, anytime I would approach to make a film, is I would take 15% of it. Because I edit, I would say, let me handle all your post-production. Don't pay me for directing. Give me 15%. And it was quick for me to know that owning the films you do makes more sense finance, you make more money than just being paid to do that. So most times, if I don't get that on a project, and if I know that so you also have to gauge the project to know where the project will go. If the project was not, if I couldn't get equity, is this good for my brand? Is this good in pushing the name forward? So those were the two things I was using to. Those were the two decisions, the two things I had to think about to make a decision.
Okay, excellent. Abba, since you brought it up with your flex, would you speak to us about some of the freelance work outside where filmmakers can actually make money outside narrative Nollywood stuff? And how do you go about getting these documentaries and commercials? Is it just the recommendations that come to you automatically, or are you actively selling yourself to be able to break into that world?
I have an agent. He's distracted. He's right.
Please
My
shout out your
agent is
agent.
right there. Ife. That's where I get work.
Where is
from.
Ife?
That's it.
Okay.
Yeah, so I primarily have an agent and manager and business partner who looks out for
Sure.
projects that.
You have an agent and a business manager.
He's everything.
Oh, he's okay.
And
He's all in one.
Yes,
Okay.
yes, all in one.
Okay.
And lawyer as well.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, assassin as well.
Yeah, that's what he looks like, to be fair. Now, clearly, that structure has worked out for you.
Yes.
Right? Because there's a lot of concern and talk about that, right? That as a filmmaker, I've often wondered how you guys do it, where how much am I getting paid? Then a manager or agent wants to come and take 15% of that,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
But you can speak to the structure of a local agent working for you. Tell us a bit more about that.
Well, with Ife it's different because he's not just a local, he's a business partner and friend. So it's our work we're doing together. So initially we started out with percentage contract, and I was like, throw this contract away. Like, we're in this together for let's build a business together, you know. So when we go out to get stuff, it's a partnership more so. But I think normal industry standard is agent, manager, 10%. I don't know how it works.
Yeah, but do you guys, between you and Ife, do you guys seek out those things, or have you found that your reputation already brings a bunch of...
A little bit of both. A little bit of both. We seek out, and more so it comes.
And it comes. And the auteur of it doesn't... Nobody thinks, oh man, I'd really love how to do my commercial, but Masquerade can just start flying around.
Yes, in fact,
do you get in those conversations?
We're currently speaking with a bank, and they kept on saying, this guy is a flight risk. And I hadn't even said it. I hadn't even done any meeting yet. But I'm like, you people are the ones who came. We did not call you yet. So but no, I'm very open-minded and very objective when it comes to doing corporate work. You know, as far as the brief is very clear, you know, your vision is very clear. I'll tell you what. There's a reason why you came to me. So I have my strong points. There are things that I might not be able to do. This is what I can do. If there's alignment, again, it's back to the thing of respect. You're giving me money, and you have a brand you're trying to sell or a vision. My job is to communicate that to my best ability. So my ego is not in there, you know, but my skill and my talent, I'm going to give you, as long as the numbers are okay and there's that mutual respect, I'm giving you 100% of what I can give you.
Okay, this is great. One of the things I want to speak to is, just as a side buttress from my own experience, commercial work, I did a bunch of commercial work for about 2 years. It's very lucrative. What I've found, however, is that it ruins my film sensibility. Yeah. I'm now not able to price stuff for film. Extras just cost so much all of a sudden in my head. Catering costs, it's weird. So I sort of need to temper myself back into the sort of film side of it. But that's just a personal experience. I'd like us to talk about, one of the big things is this drive for international success of African stories, right? And then from an individual point of view, what are the things that you're doing? What intentionality do you find yourself putting into your stories to try and, or not, or saying, nope, I'm just going to tell my story, and if they like it in Korea, that's their business. But are you finding that now there's a drive to try and ensure that your story has appeal so that Editi doesn't look down on you when he sees you in the cafe next time? That did your film sell in South Korea? You know, Editi has a way of
putting in your
you just how you doing? Yeah, so me too, I want my film to sell in South Korea. So have you found that there's some intentionality, and in what ways? Is it locations? Is it trying to find actors? Is it trying to tell stories that have some bit that relates to it? What are you doing, each of you, in your stories and in your projects, or not doing with this new sort of, I think that's the new pressure point is what I'm saying. The streaming pressure point has passed. Now the new pressure point is, number one is South Korea, right? So what are you doing about that, each person?
Yeah, I think for me, I would say that I have never thought of, making a story, and I thought about it that, oh, is this going to be, like, strictly thinking that, oh, this is going to be for international consumption, because it then becomes pretentious. There's no authenticity to it, right? So for me, I've always known from the beginning, like from my first film, that the film that I make will be accepted here and will be accepted internationally, and that has proven to be the case. Right? So there's no pressure to feel anything that, oh, there has to be specifics. If there's like anything that I'm just going to add is that as we go on, the thing that you realize is that authenticity really, really works for your film, because like once your story is authentic, you really think about the characters and the setting, the film will really travel, because other people want to be, exposed to your own culture as well. So how do you present that? But if I always tell filmmakers not to make films based on other films that they have seen, and that seems to be like a lot of the times that's actually what you see on screen. You watch maybe like an action film, the way maybe Chow Yun-fat shot in Hong Kong, you now want to, like, you said, oh, I like Time and Tide, or I actually want to do the same thing, like, in Lagos. Sometimes, like, it's not always like, it has to be the story that you have, like, it has to be authentic. Yesterday, we watched Aura, right? The thing that I love about Aura, I just wish he was, like, on the panel, he was, like, here, is that even though you could see that that is an international production, but even when you watch it as a Nigerian, it's relatable, because you really understand everything, and that's where authenticity is. So it's not just about the film will look like, Hollywood, there's a way Hollywood actually treat their characters. Like if you see the character development in Aura, right? There's a lot more layer to it. In Hollywood, sometimes they're in a hurry to just move on to the next big thing because they feel that the audience are not going to be interested. So I think, like, sometimes you have to be brave, stick to it, and it's going to definitely really work for you. And again, for me, international stories, I read an interview done by a Senegalese filmmaker. I can't remember his name, but I think his project is the one submitted for the Oscars this year by Senegal. And he said that it's always like, right now is a time for the lion to tell the story of the hunt instead of leaving it for the hunter. And that's actually what I feel like right now is happening with African cinema.
These Just guys, man, their swag is always too much. Very good, very good. So be authentic is your perspective on it. Okay. Kaede.
So like recently, it's more of like when I first came into the industry, I wanted to make Nigerian films look like American films. It was more of my interpretation was always from a Hollywood perspective or a Hollywood blockbuster perspective. And in my journey, I begin to understand that most of the films that I do like, that I like how I executed it, are films that are originally from a good place. Originally being me. What I would also say is I'm not trying to be pretentious or do anything that looks like something. I'm not trying to tell you I'm next Wes Anderson. This is Kayode. I'm a Nigerian, born in Nigeria. That's a Nigerian filmmaker. Same thing with films from the West. These are the Italian films. There's yes, the Italian films, and there's Hollywood. There are films for different parts of the world. So I'm also with the boom of like the Yoruba industry. I kind of looked at like I'm trying to be very proud of where I am and where I'm from, and I want to make those films. I think, like you said, I used to say this thing earlier. this is like what I tell myself: stay true to the art, tell the story. It's a human story to connect anywhere in the world. And I'm also not in my head, at the back of my head, for every film I'm trying to make, telling myself this is the one that will go to Hollywood. This is the one. Like, I feel like all those is, yes, unnecessary pressure. You begin to start to make moves and do things that the film does not need. So yes, I'll just say be authentically Nigerian. There's a reason why we watch these films from different parts of the world. We like their culture. So like, don't be ashamed of who you are and make those films. Just make it kick-ass, learn about filmmaking, and make world-class films. And do not be deterred by where the film is coming from. If a film is good, people will connect, they will enjoy it, you will feel fulfilled, and you'll make another one.
Are you sure you're not from Jos?
I'm not.
Okay, Abba.
I mean, same thing with what both of them said. We're doubling down, and specifically with our collective S16, that had everything that is happening right now has been in the DNA of the collective. If you read our 16-point manifesto, everything everybody is saying now, we wrote it down. Encourage indigenous filmmaking, use of indigenous language, no short of Lekki Ikoyi Bridge. Encourage genre films, you know, clear shift from comedy to now horror, crime. We've been saying this since. People are finally catching up. So, yeah, we're just doubling down.
Okay, so again, I'm always on an island. I see why they asked me to moderate. Let me push back for a second. Let me play devil's advocate. Take India. India had a 15-year period where every Hollywood hit, they literally just went and made shot for shot. Not Sino. Shot for shot. I've actually watched one of these, a bike movie. There was one bike movie that Ice Cube did or something. Like, these shots are the exact same shots. And now you're seeing great, big, interesting, global India-based stories, right? I'm not saying they wouldn't have gotten there. But there was some level of, we need to copy certain things that we think have broader appeal than our own things and then manipulate that. I'm not saying that's what we should. I'm pushing back in terms of, is there an inherent pride? I find Nigerians like Nigeria. There's nobody that loves Nigeria better than Nigeria, which is a great thing. It can also be a flaw if comparative to what we're doing, we're not doing it well enough, right? Is there some strategy that says, what are the things that we're going and we're trying to copy and we're trying to learn? And do you guys as individual filmmakers do any of that in terms of trying to find specificity from things that you're saying, this is better than what I do, I need to bring that if I want to have my own Squid Games, or I want to have my own Money Heist, or I want to have my own Narcos, I want to have my own, you know, on and on and on. It still hasn't been that for the kind of stories we tell, for the kind of country we are. I don't know whether it's simply just a racial element to it, but for the number of films we tell, there still hasn't been that. I'm happy about Black Book, but where's the world going to stop and say, everywhere you go, I've heard that film before, right? Budget's a big one. Budget is a big one.
I don't think it's even budget. It's just our industry is young, you know, where it's in a process of evolution. We're going to see it in the next couple of years. Like, there has been a astronomical jump in the quality and the diversity. Again, this 10 years ago, this did not exist. It was a monolith. Nollywood was one thing as an industry and genre. You know, when you say Nollywood, you just think of one thing. But now you can go somewhere and be like, oh, those are the S16 guys. Oh, this is the guy doing the Netflix original. This is the guy who's killing in the box office. So it can only get better.
Interesting. Absolutely.
I also think, like, as creatives, you also have to think of film as a product. And that's what we are learning, because Nollywood started from marketing in Alaba, and we are learning, oh, there's a market for this. And just going back to what you said about India, in trying to, for lack of a better word, trying to copycat Hollywood, they learned structure of how to make good films. And we are all figuring it out. And the big problem is we do not collaborate. Like, we do not talk to each other on, this is how, like, I feel like, and like you said, we're growing, but we are failing, and in failing, we are learning. we are learning off each other. You can't, like, if you want to make a box office film, you look at Jade and the moves that she makes and the practices. We are learning off each other's wins. And that's why you see when a Nollywood film comes, like, it's a gangster film, like, the next time, but every producer wants to make a gangster film. We are not talking to each other. And one thing I did learn, like, talking to filmmakers when you travel, is like, for me, it's mind-blowing, is how everybody is just talking, sharing information. I'm like, you cannot sit down with Nigerian filmmakers and that will happen. It's like everybody's talking in codes. But
I disagree. Me, I've always been
no, you're a sharer.
In fact, that has been my biggest problem, that I talk too much. I give too much
It's the same thing, like, I mean, I give information too as well. But the thing that I want to say is that, like, you see, you copy from the beginning. When you don't have direction as an artist, you just copy. And then, like, when you copy, as you go on, you get better, right? But I'm just going to say that, like, I mean, from the very genesis of, like, I mean, telling stories, when I started reading stories, I read Pacesetters, I read African Writers series, all of these, like, I mean, great novels from around Africa. And they were, it was brilliant in terms of entertainment, but then it tells me about those particular places. You see, those authors were not copying Shakespeare and writing to me like Shakespeare, or writing to me like Charles Dickens. They were writing to me as Africans, and I could relate to that. Like, people always talk about, Chinua Achebe as, like, I mean, the greatest, like, I mean, novelist, and people, he's always number one in people's list. My own is a Kenyan writer, is Ngugi wa Thiong'o. Like, I love him. Right? Because when I read his stories, like, it was something that I felt like Kenya was just, because I could see the valley, I could see the white settlement, I understood, like, I mean, all the struggles and everything that was going on there. So you see, that authenticity started from the beginning. But imagine if I was writing fiction from those guys and it was just a copy of Charles Dickens. It's going to be the same thing I'm going to be talking about today. Like, I'm just going to be like, it's going to be in my head. So I think the main problem, like, when you have copies, the same thing with Bollywood. When you start from the beginning, right, it's the same thing with Nollywood. Like, you're making films of American films that you've seen because there's no structure, right? And that is one thing that I always talk about, like, training. Right? People always say, like, right now, people are so arrogant. They talk about the fact that, oh, you don't need training. And I'm just like, well, I went to film school, right? And the thing that I learned from film school, he was talking about, I mean, Carl Jung, right? And, these are things that you learn by reading, right? The greatest film in terms of blockbuster, apart from, like, Spielberg's Jaw, there's Star Wars. Right? Star Wars was inspired by what? Like, I mean, the one that now everybody reads in, like, in writing. What is the name of that book? The one that's written by this other guy that's about the hero's journey.
Yeah,
everybody reads
Joseph Campbell.
Joseph Campbell. Do you understand? Like, I mean, so for me, that's just what it is. Like, I think that, yeah, when you need to study, to be an artist, you need to study. You can't just, like, copy from outside.
Excellent. Yes, we're going to do questions now. Are there questions in the house? So good. I only see 2 hands. Perfect. Perfect. So, okay, 3 hands. And we're going to end on those 3. Please give it to them. And I will interject if it becomes this is the monologue part of the Ikini. Yours is the question part. So don't be offended. Make them quick, but ask tough questions. This is the time you get these people. They're an open book. Yep.
Okay, hi everybody. My name is Becky Aldwell, and I'm taking the script writing masterclass, right? So while everybody was talking, I just realized that these are filmmakers, these are producers, but at the same time, they're talking about script writing as though they're also script writers themselves, right? So I've not really seen too many script writers like that in the industry. I don't know too many script writers. Myself, I'm an intending script writer, let me put it that way. So what's the platform for script writers? How do you, if you have stories that you can swear by, how do you develop them? How do you meet with producers that way you guys can turn this thing into life? Like, how do you do that? That's the question. Thank you.
As a script, so I'm a writer and I direct as well. So I am a script writer. And first of all, you need to watch more films. And when you watch those films, find the original scripts, deconstruct them. There are YouTube channels that do very good script writing workshops, but then there are also labs screenwriters labs globally. There's Realness Institute in South Africa. There's
Waga Film Lab.
Waga Film Lab.
Torino Film Lab.
Torino Film Lab.
Yeah.
There's Berlinale Script Station.
Yeah.
And they're constantly looking for people from this part of the world, you know, all the time. So if you, I mean, it all depends on the quality of your work, but try, you know, go to these labs, you get an opportunity to travel, to meet other screenwriters from other parts of the world. You be put in beautiful locations where you can incubate yourself and develop your work. We are also working on a screenwriters lab, our collective S16, and we'll be setting up a screenwriters lab in Jos. You come to Jos for 6 weeks. It's called the Hamatan Lab.
Chill, that's dope.
Yeah, and you come to Jos for 6 weeks to come and work on your script with visiting professionals that will come and tutor and train you. So it's all the information. You just have to do research. You know, I'm not too sure. I know there's Ebony Life Academy and yeah, but go outside as well, you know, outside the industry.
But I think you were speaking to if you feel like you're already a scriptwriter, and you said if you feel like your thing is on fire, Abi, if you can swear by it. First of all, everybody that writes even one line, they swear by it. Just so you know that. But here's what I will say. I'll speak to it from a sort of working exec in Nollywood standpoint. A lot of us write our own stuff as well. In this room, there's a guy there called Joshua. He's head of productions for Nemsha. He is going to be greenlighting a bunch of films next year. Get you, madam, get him your stuff. If he can swear by it, maybe there'll be something. Not if you can swear by it. Okay, next question.
Yeah, and also it doesn't matter whether you're a professional screenwriter. You can still go for labs,
exactly.
to meet. Yeah, exactly.
I mean, I'm in a lab. Like, I mean, I even applied for Film Independent, I think. But like, I was in a lab. Like, all of my projects like usually go through labs. So it's the same thing. You guys just came back from La Fabrique in Cannes,
yes. And Mike just came back from Realness. Yeah. CJ did Lim, and he's going for another lab in Italy. Yeah. You know, this is somebody who's in his fourth feature-length film. He's still going for a lab. Yeah.
You have to find him. All right. Who was the next question person? Yes, please.
Hi, I'm Adida Kwadini. My question is for Abba. So, kind of like how the German expressionism influenced Orson Welles' filmmaking, and then we go on to Hollywood making films from like the early 1900s, and then the French New Wave came with Godard and Truffaut and Varda, and then they practically influenced filmmaking.
You sabi walk.
He's a
I know you sabi walk. Get to the question.
Sorry. Yes, and with Spielberg and Lucas blockbusters.
Yes.
So like now, every filmmaker refers to, even mainstream Hollywood filmmakers will refer back to the French New Wave, which started off as like an independent movement. So like, how is your like, with the S16, and how do you feel like it's going to, independent filmmaking from the S16 is going to break into the mainstream, and what's your reception to that?
I mean, I'm here at AFRIF speaking to a mainstream audience, so it has already started. The conversation has started, and it's like back to what Kayode is saying. We need to collaborate. We need to share knowledge. It doesn't matter if you're a blockbuster filmmaker or this thing. Like as we speak now, from here in Ajade office, they go. We're going to go and talk. Yeah. I'm also coming to you with a deck. Yeah. You get so even, and it goes back to when I was doing Los Okoroshi. Ni Akimolayo gave me lights. Yeah. You know, No Dash. Exactly. Yeah. No Dash gave me lenses. Yeah. You get. So it's constant dialogue. So right now, S16 is in that phase right now where we're setting the foundation for the next generation of art house or auteur filmmakers, and our village is getting smaller and bigger. Sorry, with filmmakers like Orim's Dami and what's his name, Tunde as well. and the Asiri brothers as well. So it's going to keep getting bigger and bigger. And we also want to make commercial films as well. Why not? We won't be put in a box, you know.
Yeah, there's also like something in the industry, like whatever it is, like niche now, like tomorrow, once the general people just like pick it up, it becomes commercial. So I'm sure with time, like with the right education, everybody's just going to be making that sort of film. So you're not going to say, oh, this is actually totally art house in Nigeria. It's just the same.
Exactly.
It's just,
Something niche can turn mainstream overnight.
Yeah.
Like the Lucases, the Steven Spielberg, they were all niche filmmakers. It just took one film.
Jordan Peele.
Jordan Peele, exactly. And then all of a sudden it becomes mainstream, you know.
That was the last question, right?
No.
There was one more?
No.
Who had put? Oh, Amy.
Yeah.
Amy, right? All right.
I'm here.
Who's saying I'm here? Wave your hand, please. Okay.
I have the mic.
After you, Amy, and then we're done. All right.
Okay.
Please go ahead.
Hi, my name is Chukwuka. I directed the short film that is screening tomorrow, nominated at this festival. Yeah. Okay, it's not just a flex, That's the reason why I said that. Okay, yeah. So when I made after shooting the film and all that, like even editing it was a challenge because I felt so bad about how the production went. Like I felt things didn't go right, and I felt like I needed to throw it away and all that until I was nudged to edit it and all. And finally, when the film, I won an award in Abuja and all that, and this nomination, now I feel kind of good about it. But that whole time I felt bad about it, and I was willing to shelve it. And then, which was a disappointment to the executive producer at the time and all that. So I'm trying to ask, like, how do you guys deal with this? I think it's like the imposter syndrome, when you've managed to do something that's fairly good or good at all, but you just still feel bad about it until you start getting validation or applause from people for this. Okay. So how do you guys deal with this?
It's called the misery of the first cut. You never, ever like the first cut of your film. You're lucky if that happens. And also, you talked about when you make those mistakes on your next project, you're not going to make those mistakes again. You always just have to fight hard for your vision. You have to have this vision of what you want the film to do directly from set. Stick to it. Sometimes you're tired of your own ideas, and like, no, let me just do something different. Sometimes you want to give up on yourself, but just stick with that vision. Even in post, if you shot it, it is there. Just find it. Films go on post-production for sometimes 2 years. Short films, sometimes 6 months, 3 months. You just have to stick with it. That's what I have to say.
Next question, please.
Thank you. My name is Amy. My question is like trifold, but it's going to piggyback on his question. So I'm glad that you said, that films can kind of be unpredictable in terms of like the life cycle. So for example, this is the first part of the question. For example, I've been working on a documentary series for like 5 years. Well, it started in 5 years, or I conceptualized it 5 years ago. And it only just found its calling like a year ago. And then I had my first screening last week, and now it's like gaining momentum, right? And I know exactly where to go with it. But that's 5 years. That's a long like investment of time. And I'm sure a lot of filmmakers here can relate. And then the second part of that question is, do you always, and this is a question for all of you, have you always kind of seen the end from the beginning? Or do you kind of have a path that you want to follow, and then, like you said, stick to it? Because sometimes you can't. Things happen. You might not get funding. Do you just instinctively go for it? Because there's power in starting, right? So if you just sit on an idea for like 5, 10 years, ideas are not exclusive. Somebody else can have a similar idea. So do you just say, you know what, with the small money I have, or with the resources I have available to me, maybe partners, I'm just going to start working on it and executing it? Is that always a wise approach? Should you really just wait till you have the right infrastructure? And the third part of the question, bear with me, is if you do have a path that you want to follow, are your choices of who to seek funding or partnership from, is it an instinctive and organic process, or is it heavily researched? Does it just kind of, because I mean, I'm hearing different things, like one person Sterling, another person you partnered with this filmmaker, you know, like that sounds very, very intuitive, you know. But there are other people who just have a path. They do their extensive research. They email the right people. So can you answer that, please?
I think I can respond to a few of those things. I'll let anybody else as well respond to them. So it's not tech, right? Move fast and break things. I don't think applies to this part of the world. And I personally don't get scared about people having the same idea you have. There's a million films that, and like you said, if you make one gangster film, everybody's going to make a gangster film, right? King of Boys, Shantytown, Gangs of Lagos, and it's going to continue to happen, right? But you can still enjoy them all. I think you're better served making sure that what you're working on is actually fruitful. I don't see the need to sort of rush, especially because somebody else have the idea. That means nothing to me. Netflix just brought out a wonderful film, Koi Koi Origin by Michael, he's my friend. We're making a Koi Koi film for Amazon next year. Literally, and no concern whatsoever as far as I think it's pre-marketing for my film. You know, so ultimately, I don't jump into things because you're concerned that somebody else has that, right? And then, so get to at least a critical level of awareness about the story, the project, the this and funding and all that before you don't go and rent light when you only have one scene written. It doesn't work, right? And then the second thing is, while a lot of the investment or investors' conversations are instinctive, it all still comes down to the same thing: networking, networking, networking. I am terrible at it for someone who's telling you to do it. I hate being in public eye, I hate events, I hate it all. I do. But the more people you talk to, the more the opportunities to be able to get to fund those things, right? So intentionality and get out of your house, talk to people. Stop being afraid someone's going to take your idea. There's no bloody idea that's good, that's new under the sun. Like, let them take it, go and do it again and do it better. Like, it's not a tech product. Talk to people, network, show your passion. That's what's going to drive people to give it a shot. That's my take on it.
Please, I have a question.
All right.
I have a question.
They are killing me.
A question. Yeah.
I have to. Don't put your head down. Can he take his question? Hello. Last question. We're told last question. All right,
okay, sir. My name is Toye Aru. I'm a film director. My film Jita Boy is screening tomorrow.
Congratulations, Jita Boy. Excellent.
My question is, as an emerging filmmaker making like a couple of short films, how does one make that transition to like his first feature film? What's that process like? And what advice do you have for someone at that stage making that jump?
Just do it.
It's the same thing. Yeah, I mean,
just do it. Like, do you have a script for the feature? Write that script. Write the script for the feature, and the same process you started for the short, you do it, but you're scaling up. Yeah. You know, you're just scaling. You scale up, and collaborate. Look for friends. You look for a friend who's a DP, you look for a friend who's a art director, you just collaborate, scale up, small, little by little. Yeah, but there's no plan, just, you go wing them, just do them.
He's absolutely right. I will say, just make sure the lessons you learned in the shorts aren't repeat. If the script was bad in the short, don't write that script. Go and find Auntie over there whose script is on par, and give it to her to write the script, right? So ultimately, collaborate. And the biggest thing Abba is saying that's true is, and it's only in Nollywood, by the way, to get to make a feature in other worlds is bloody difficult. Yes. It's actually bloody difficult, right? It's almost, I don't want they'll hold me to this now, but it's almost a waste of your time doing a short in Nigeria. Why? Because it's the same pain to raise $10,000-$15,000 that it is to raise the $60,000 you need to rough a feature.
Absolutely.
So, like Abba said, get down there and just go for it. Nigeria is one place you can just. Let me tell you something. When you lose investors' money, I hope there are no investors here. It's in other worlds that you have to declare bankruptcy. Yeah, lawyers write you letter. When you lose investors' money, you just your papa, and it's gone. It's toast. So go for it. do it.
Yeah.
There's no real advice to that.
Sorry. So with the shorts, I always tell filmmakers, please hurry up and do the feature film. Again, there's not that much value in Nigeria for doing shorts. It's good. It's good to learn your craft, know your hand, know your style. The moment you have that figured out, go for the feature. You know, that's where the business is in. You know, there's business in shorts as well, but it's not as developed here. I have a colleague, a third member of our collective, Mike Omonua. He did a short film rehearsal with about a budget of 5 million naira. The money he has made just from prizes and screening fees internationally. There are sales agents for short films that will just be putting your films in film festivals, and you're collecting $200, $1,000. Like, it will just be accumulating over 2 years. You've made 30K, 50K, 100K from one short film. But that industry is not developed here. So what I advise is your short film, do it to know your hand, show it at AFRIF, bring it to S16, send it to international film festivals as well. But go for the kill, go for the feature-length film. That's it.
One last question, sir. Just one question, final question.
See us outside. You can see us outside.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Thank you all for coming. The